I know that for most of us, it's difficult to explain very succinctly what we do. In fact, I could bet that we and you pretty much dread the question, what do you do? Every time you hear it. And that's because we may have a different understanding, different perception. We're very close to what we do every day. We're close to the elephant, whereas people don't know what we do every day in our professions most of the time. So here is a metaphor that I hope will help you create a good and a compelling and adaptive way to answer the question, what do you do? And explain quickly, what do you do? The metaphor is the metaphor of a song. Your introduction is just like a song. You will play it, you will say it thousands and thousands of times. And every time, if we want to connect with you, you'll have to adapt the song. The tempo might change, the length might change. We'll only have 30 seconds to say it / play it, or a whole hour if you're interviewed on a podcast, for instance. But every time you'll have to use consistently the key lines, the key words that help people understand what is it that you do. And this is like the intro and the chorus and the different sections of your song. So think about it as something that you will interpret different times. So first of all, don't think that it has to be completely scripted, that you can't change one word at all for the rest of your life, of your career. The way you describe your work changes every day. And in fact, on a weekly basis, I look at what's on my website. I listen to my podcast interviews. I reflect on how I was talking to a potential client. And I always notice that I introduce slightly new terms, but there is consistency in the core of how I describe what I do. What I do is business strategy for change makers, CEOs, leadership teams, and business owners of professional services firms. That has been stable for a while now, and it will continue to be stable for as long as I'm in business and I like it, I enjoy it, and my business is profitable and I can make an impact. But depending on the case, I have a chance to explain what I do and develop a bit what I provide differently. So that's the metaphor. Now, how do you practically go about this? Practically speaking, you want to start with something that people can easily recognize quickly. And that's something that's a struggle that I see very oftentimes. We feel like we want to explain something that's very unique from the get-go, and we fall into the trap of over explaining and complicating things when in fact they just need to be simple. So a very practical way to think about explaining what you do is to say what you do and to use the common denomination for what you do. If you are a financial advisor, you should say, I specialize in financial advising or financial advice. If you are a leadership coach, you should say, I am a leadership coach. I am a business strategy consultant. And whenever people ask me what I do is I say I do business strategy consulting. Depending on the context, if I want to emphasize a little more my coaching practice within my consulting offer, I say also, I'm a business strategy coach, or I'm a business coach. These words say the same thing, but slightly different based on who is it that I have in front of me. So first of all, start with the discipline. People want to be able to understand quickly what you do. Nobody wants to be feeling like you've told them something that is so complex and sophisticated that they start thinking, am I dumb? Am I the person that I'm missing something here? And I'm very uncomfortable because I believe that I think I should be understanding what you do, but I don't. That's the narrative in people's mind. And nobody wants to be in those shoes. So, don't take people through this challenge. Don't make it a very complicated thing to understand. Just say what it is. You're a writer. Say, I provide writing services. You are say, you do brand strategy. Don't go into overcomplete, don't say, I help organizations find the true vision for what they really believe in their purpose, and then turning these into branding assets. That comes later. But first, start with what is it that you do. Now, the second element is, and naturally, I've noticed over the years, the question that comes naturally next is, oh, who do you do this for? Is this for individuals? Is this for small companies? Is this for large organizations, big corporations? Is this for startups? Is this for established companies? It's natural for people to be inquisitive about who you help. They want to figure out if there are potentially a fit in your target audience, or if they know somebody they can refer. So don't shy away from picking what is called a vertical positioning. Like, who do you help? Currently, I told you just before, MetaHelm help. I do through MetaHelm, I help professional services firm. It's still a quite broad type of organizations and companies and businesses, but it helps me at least narrow it down to something that people can grasp, and that enables them to say, oh yeah, Guillaume is not working on consumer products or large industrial equipment. No, it's professional services firm. So in most people's mind, they'll understand that I help executive recruiting, some technology services company, information services companies, architecture firms, coaching, consulting, financial advisors, and so on, right? So help people understand how they should be able to remember what you do. Help them simply grasp where to put your business identification in their mind from the get-go. That's the first thing. That's the basics. And it's so simple that it makes people uncomfortable. I mean, professionals uncomfortable, because I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, this is so specific. This is so narrow that it's going to kill many of my options and my opportunities. And that feels very, very scary, right? You're really trying to, I probably come across right now to you that I want you to niche down and choose a very, very specific way. Possibly, if you feel like that's good for you, go ahead and do it. But my message, I give you very simple examples of my message, is make it easy. Whether it's specific or broad, it's up to you to gauge and decide. You can also have multiple businesses. You're not just one. Potentially, you can have different activities. I have colleagues who run a real estate business, a dog training business, and a consulting business. I have also some friends who have a winery and a project management firm here in Seattle. So think about yourself as a multifaceted entrepreneur that runs different offers. And when people ask you what you do, maybe you say, well, I have 2 or 3 offers. The first one is business strategy for professional services firm. The second one is landscaping for private residences. And the third one is French language classes for retired folks. I just made that up. I could do it. So there you go. Start simple with an easy way for people to understand. Back to my music metaphor. It would be like, from the get-go, from the intro of the song, signaling, is this going to be a rap song? Is this going to be a slow song, maybe about love and romance? Or is it going to be a heavy metal song? Is it going to be something about that has lyrics or not? So the first thing we want to get to is the style. Another metaphor I use with a client recently is the metaphor of sports. It's like when people ask you what you do, implicitly, if you were an athlete or in sports, you would respond with the league that you play in. You know, are you playing in the basketball league? Are you playing in the baseball league? Are you playing in the soccer league, in the cricket league? Are you playing in the sailing league, the rugby league? There are thousands and thousands of leagues of sports. I don't know, maybe are there thousands of sports? I don't know. There are many sports. There you go. You got my point. So start with that. It's just so reassuring for people. Obviously, that's assuming if people ask you what you do when they don't know you, they're strangers, right? Which is, you know, really most of the case, most of the time. Like, and even if people know we're in consulting, for example, they want to hear it from you, like what kind of consulting specifically. Then comes the possibility to develop a little more about what your business stands for and how you do your work, and that's your perspective, and that should include the benefits for what you do. So it sounds a little bit like something like this. For MetaHelm, MetaHelm helps you define a strategic narrative that has everybody understand the direction of the company, helps you be focused, and then make tractions. When you have that narrative in place, people know what to do. Your value proposition is different in the market, and processes are easier. Selling is faster, and your company is more fun to work with. So you attract more people. That's the value prop. And that's what I add after telling people what is it that I do. I add those details. I still have, you know, in the 30 seconds introduction, I still have enough time. If I don't beat around the bushes, if I don't just circle around the first answer, if I'm very concise with the first description of what I do, then it gives me more time to add those necessary details. And I may customize the value prop, the benefits that I bring in the value proposition based on my audience. If I'm speaking in front of tech entrepreneurs, I'll probably insist a little more on differentiation, go-to-market, product market fit. These are all benefits that I create through the work in strategic narrative that I do with them. If I talk to, say, a coach, right, I am going to talk more about clarity of finding a good positioning in the market, generating leads. So some of the benefits are those two, maybe a little more on the sales aspect, and then confidence in being proud of what they have to offer. I hope this metaphor helps you. Think about your introduction as a piece of music that you develop and that you practice over time, and that you give yourself the leeway to interpret and research and modify based on the audience and based on the venue. Thank you so much. I look forward to getting your questions and comments